Today what I'm going to talk to you about is a really old pest that is making a resurgence, which is wireworm. A fairly new pest to Alberta since 2005, which is Syria leaf beetle. And then finish up talking about the beneficial insects, because all of these insects occupy the same space and the same time in the field. They're all out there together. Your crop fields are they are ecosystems, like little jungles out there, right? So I'm going to be showing you some of the insects that are sharing the space in your field and what they're doing. Some of them are bad, right? But the vast majority of species in your field are actually beneficial. So you have pollinators, you have predators, you have decomposers. So I'm going to show you some of those specimens. So my plan right now is to talk about these different stations I have up here, and then give you some time to come up here and get hands-on and look at all these little salad dishes full of all kinds of different beneficials, so that you can look at them up close, right? Spiders are fast. You usually probably don't get to see them very close, but we've got 6 different kinds of spiders here and a couple other different predators. All right, so we'll start with wireworm. Does anyone here have a wireworm problem or concerns? Yeah, all of you? Yeah, so this is a very frustrating pest. This is a historic pest on the prairies. We have about 3 species that are the main pest species, and they're all native pests here. So this is an insect that has adapted to our prairie conditions. They evolved on grasslands, which means they're very good at eating cereals, they're very good at overwintering, they're very good at hiding from predators. So we have our challenge up against us here. You may hear on BC and on the East Coast, the species they have out there are invasive, so those are European species. So across Canada, there are hundreds and hundreds of what we call click beetles, which is the adult stage of wireworms, and 20 to 30 across Canada of those species are pests. So you have different pest species in BC than you do in the prairies, than you do in Ontario, than you do in the Atlantic provinces. So the ones we have here are native. And what I want to talk to you about quickly is the life cycle, just in case you don't know, but wireworms are the larval forms, so the baby form of click beetles, right? And they only spend a few months of their life in the adult form. Most of the time they spend under the soil in the larval form. So here's just a diagram here for those who can see. In the springtime here, they emerge as click beetles. Then they lay eggs, so that would be May, June, probably done by now, or getting close to being done laying eggs now. And then those eggs hatch, they go down into the soil, and those larvae will stay there for 2 to 9 to 11 years, depending on the species, the conditions, the food available to them. They can take a year off feeding. They're very resilient. If it gets too hot, they just go down in the soil. So they're really hard to get at, and they're really hard to study. After they've reached a certain size, after a number of years, then they'll pupate in the soil. So they'll metamorphosize back into adults and emerge in the next spring to mate and to lay eggs. Right? So we only have a couple months of their life cycle where they're actually accessible to us. Is that feedback? Can we do anything about that? Okay. Can you still hear me? Okay, good. I can barely hear it from here, but I guess it's facing you guys. All right, so we only have a couple months of their multi-year life cycle to try to catch them when they're above the ground. So here is an example of 3 different kinds of traps we're testing out. This one was developed in BC by an Ag Canada scientist. This one developed in PEI, and this one's a very traditional pitfall trap, which is very simple. Entomology is pretty simple. We use duct tape, we use cups for the most part. So picture this as the soil level, right? And your little click beetles are running around in the soil. They don't really see this thing because it's so big, and they fall in and they fall under the soil, and we have a little cup of antifreeze in there that poisons them and drowns them. This one is a special one because it's got these teeth under the lid, which keeps out mice and stuff that eat our specimens. So we're testing out this model right now. This one's just a cup with a cover, and this one is really cool because it's a solar-powered one. So all day it'll collect energy from the sun, and then at night this light will shine in this cup, which attracts click beetles and other beetles, and they come down there. So we're trying to figure out what's the best way with our prairie species to collect these things, right? How do you study them if you can't even get to them? So that's one thing you can come take a look up after. We have little specimens here of our 3 main pest species. Actually, we have 4 examples of 4 species here, but I want you to come take a look at this after and take a look at what a click beetle looks like, because there are a whole bunch of other kinds of beetles that are in your field that are not the bad guys, and so those are going to be on that side. We also have examples of the larval forms of different species, so you can match up what the larva looks like with the adult species. If you have wireworm in your field, I'm going to show you a picture here. because they live for multiple years, right? This is a photo of all one species, right, of different sizes. So year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4. So if you dig out some wireworm in your field, you may all have one species in there, or these may all be different species because some of them grow to certain sizes. Some of them get really big, some of them stay small. So first step of integrated pest management, right, is to try to identify what pest you're working with. And that is that is the step that we're at with studying this pest. And you may wonder why that is, because we know a lot about a lot of pests, but wireworm were so far behind, and it's because it was able to be controlled with Lindane, right, up till 2004. So right now we don't have the chemical control for it. There was lots of research on wireworms in the 1900s to the 1930s. When pesticide was invented, then the research stopped, right, because you could control them with chemicals. Now that those have been deregistered, we're back to the stage of, okay, what do we know in the 30s about these things? And what's changed since then in our systems? So much, right? We have new crops, we have chemicals. So we're playing a lot of catch up on wireworm. If you want to see what live ones look like, I've got some in this dish here, feeding on potato. Yes, so that's what I was going to say about wireworm. The project that I'm doing, which is co-funded by the Alberta Wheat Commission and Western Grains Research Foundation, is examining crop rotations in relation to controlling wireworms. So out east in PEI, they have a huge, massive problem with potato production and wireworms. They've discovered that if you rotate brown mustard in with potato production instead of a cereal, then the wireworm populations get suppressed. So we don't grow much brown mustard out here, but I thought, well, we have canola. Will that have some kind of similar effect? We know that canola has different glucosinolates than mustard, but we do this rotation anyway, so I'm trying to find out if that's affecting our wireworms or not. Also, where do the click beetles lay their eggs? We don't even know the preferences of these hosts. So will the females lay eggs in cereals? Will they not lay in canola? So we're doing some really basic information there. We're also producing a field guide for you, so that you can learn more about wireworms. After talking to people, I know that there's a lot of misconceptions out there about their life cycle or how long they live. And so we're just trying to make some awareness out there and feed into future research programs. Ag Canada has a national team now, coast to coast, working on all the different wireworm species across Canada. So I'm your prairie representative on that team. And we're looking at different ways of trying to track the adults, right? Because if you can catch and kill adults, then that's less eggs in the soil. So we're working on all kinds of different approaches, right, to try to get some integrated pest management for wireworm. Okay, so that's what I want to say about wireworm. Once I'm done talking, of course, you can come up here and take a good look for yourself. Oh, I should say one more thing, is that I get a lot of requests or a lot of people with concerns about wireworm, and it doesn't turn out to be wireworm. So if you want to send me your samples, if you see a little squiggly thing in the soil, you want to send me your samples, I'm happy to ID them for you. And sometimes it's not wireworm at all. Sometimes it's the larva of a fly or something that's even beneficial sometimes. So just because it's a little worm-like thing in the soil doesn't mean it's wireworm. Okay, next thing. So that's our historic pest that's making a comeback right now. The next thing I want to talk about is Syria leaf beetle, which is new to Alberta since 2005. This is a Eurasian or European beetle that was in the US since the 60s, but it's finally made its way up here in the prairies. And Syria leaf beetle, does anyone have a problem with Syria leaf beetle right now? No one. That's my problem this year, is I'm trying to get samples, and the last couple of years have been too dry for Syria leaf beetle. So we've been really struggling.
Plots, Haley, so we'll see them right after your...
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Oh, that's good to know. Okay.
You're welcome to take all of them.
I would like to take all of them. I just need a vacuum. Yeah, so the kind of damage you'll see, which you'll see live when you go to the next plots, is striped feeding in your cereals, right? And since this can be on the flag leaf, that's the most important leaf for contributing to yield, you might see either holes right through the leaf, which is adult Syria leaf beetle feeding, or kind of windows with like a little transparent film still on them, and that's larval feeding. So in the US and in Europe, this is a serious pest that has like a lot of yield reducing potential, but it hasn't turned out to be the case so far here on the prairies, and we think the reason is this Biocontrol Wasp here. Tiny, tiny, tiny. You'll see it when you come up here. It's called T. Julius, and this little wasp is amazing. It'll hunt down cereal leaf beetle larva and poke a hole in them, insert its eggs in them, and those eggs will eat the inside of the cereal leaf beetle larva out. Now, wherever we've done sampling to see what the parasitism or like the attack rate is, it's more than 50% of the larvae almost everywhere we've released these have been parasitized, so they're getting killed. So we think this biocontrol agent is the reason it hasn't become a problem. So actually, if you have any cereal leaf beetle, we can come or you could send us samples and we'll tell you if you already have this wasp or not. And if you don't, if we have extra, we can send some to you. Okay, now the next part here is really important, which is beneficial insects. So remember, these pests, they're out there, but they're not your only insects. So if you're going outside with a sweep net and you see a net full of bugs, that doesn't mean they're all pests. So we're just trying to create awareness that there's lots and lots of good bugs out there. They're doing free work for you. They're killing your pests. They're eating your weed seeds. In ecology, we call that ecosystem services. We can call it free labor. We can call it field heroes. You can call it whatever. But it's basically saving you money. And one of the things I want to work on in my career is to quantify what the benefits are of these, right? Because if you're spraying out a pest like aphids or cutworms, a foliar spray, you're killing all these guys, right? So you may be killing the pests, but how much are these guys worth? Because they're eating pests for you anyway. Or you may spray for aphids and you're killing the parasitoid of wheat stem sawfly or cutworm, right? A pest that you're not even thinking about, but maybe will be a rebound pest next year because you killed all its enemies. So this is something we're trying to raise awareness of. We don't have answers right now in terms of how many dollars per acre these things are worth, but that is the next area of research. That's what I want to focus on going forward, right? Because you need that information to make informed decisions. Like, is it worth it for you to spray or not? So we just want to give you the information so that you can make the most informed decisions. So up here we have ground beetles. These, to a non-entomologist, these probably look a lot like the click beetles, which are the adult wireworms, right? So when you come up here, you can take a look and see the difference in shape. And just, if you leave here with the awareness of not all beetles are bad, that would be great. So we have live ground beetles, we have pinned ground beetles of different species. By the way, we have hundreds of species of ground beetles on the prairies. So there's so many. We have 6 different kinds of spiders. We have daddy longlegs, which are not spiders, but they sure look like them. We have ladybird beetles. These are really important predators, right? These are your aphid eaters. And a damsel bug, which people might not know as much. They're brown, they're delicate, but they pierce. They'll hunt their prey and then they'll pierce it and then they'll dissolve it and suck out the juices. So they're really good hunters. And actually one of these bit me once in the leg and it really hurts. So they have a good sting. So are there any questions before everybody comes up here?
You said the ladybird beetles eat aphids. Do you think they eat anything else? Like maybe Lygus, nymphs?
Yeah, anything soft-bodied they'll eat. Well, we know they eat cereal leaf beetle larvae too, so anything soft-bodied. Hard-bodied pests like a beetle or a weevil, I don't think they could get through that. But they're voracious, especially in their larval form when they look like little alligators. They're even more aggressive in the larval form than when they're adults. Okay, so if you want to come up here, take a look. I'm going to be here answering questions and discussing with you. We have about 10 minutes, so come on up.
Which one's the damsel?
These two.
Damsel Bugs.
Yeah, so every row here is a different beneficial. So you see, so there's a lot of prey in here, right? We have to feed them, but these little brown delicate guys, those are the damsel bugs.
Okay.
And if you really look close, you can see the stinger. They have this long nose. That's their stinger.
So it's the proboscis that stings. Really?
Yeah, stings, and then it shoots venom, and then they drink it. Yeah, like a spider kind of. But spiders have fangs.
Is there a soil type that wireworms prefer?
We don't know. We don't know that yet. Probably though, I would say. Like they may not like clay that much. They don't seem to be a huge problem in Manitoba, so.
And how far do the click beetles move every year?
Oh, they can move kilometers, right? They can fly.
Really?
Yeah.
Like 10 kilometers or 100 kilometers?
I would say on the scale of 10, probably, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
It depends on how many mates there are, right? If they emerge and they have males and females in the same field, then they don't need to move. So they mate and then lay eggs
Right.
again.
So